the lights in the boxing arena flickered once, and for a brief, suspended moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Marvin Hagler, marvelous to millions, stood in the center of the ring, arms raised, a champion once more, but behind the roar of the crowd, there was a quiet, almost imperceptible weight that followed him wherever he went. Fame, glory, and victory had made him a household name, yet no title, no belt, no ovation could shield him from the personal storms that would shadow his life for decades. His story was not just about triumph in the squared circle, it was about the human heart, battered and bruised in ways the cameras never captured. And what happened later, what the world learned too late, is a tragedy that is both shocking and heartbreaking. Marvin grew up in Newark, New Jersey, a place where survival often depended on toughness and tenacity. From a young age, the ring became his sanctuary. Every punch he threw, every sparring session, was more than practice, it was therapy, a way to wrestle with a world that seemed set on testing him at every turn. You could see it in his eyes, a quiet determination that bordered on obsession. But behind that steely gaze was a man who felt deeply, who loved fiercely, and who carried pain like a second skin. How does someone so indomitable appear so unbreakable on the outside while carrying such burdens inside? By the time Hagler ascended to the pinnacle of boxing, the 1980s, he was more than a fighter, he was a symbol. He wasn't just marvelous because of his skill or his ferocity in the ring. He was marvelous because he embodied the struggle, the sheer willpower it took to rise above adversity. Yet, even at his height, fame was complicated. The world celebrated his victories, yet it often overlooked the sacrifices, the family moments missed, the constant pressure to perform, the mental and emotional strain that no training regimen could prepare him for. Who really knows what a champion carries home after the crowd has gone silent? The spotlight turned off, and the doors of the gym are closed. One of the most haunting aspects of Hagler's life was the way the public framed him. Marvelous was a persona, a brand, an expectation. Fans, journalists, and promoters alike demanded he be more than human. Yet being human meant making mistakes, feeling loneliness, and sometimes struggling in silence. In interviews later in life, there were hints, subtle, almost fleeting, of a man wrestling with regrets, with grief, with loss. Some nights, long after the cameras stopped rolling, he would sit quietly, replaying fights in his head, thinking not of triumphs, but of moments he wished had been different. The tragedy of Marvin Hagler is not one of poverty or failure. It is a tragedy of brilliance and isolation. After leaving the sport, after hanging up the gloves, he sought peace, trying to find meaning outside the roar of the crowd and the glare of the spotlight. But the world that once elevated him so high could be unforgiving, indifferent, or simply unaware. Fans remembered the fights, the knockouts, the undefeated streaks, but they did not always see the man quietly enduring, the man grieving losses that had nothing to do with championships. How do you reconcile the image of a hero with the vulnerability of the human being beneath? And then there was the final chapter, abrupt and unanticipated. A man who had survived wars in the ring, who had faced opponents larger, stronger, more experienced, succumbed to a tragedy that seemed almost surreal. It was a reminder that no amount of courage, skill, or fame could make someone invincible. The world mourned not only the loss of a legend, but the loss of a person who had given everything and asked little in return. His passing forced a reflection. What does it mean to be marvelous in a world that often values spectacle over empathy? Yet, amid the sorrow, there is something remarkable about Marvin Hagler's story. It is a testament to perseverance, to discipline, to the relentless pursuit of excellence. And it is a reminder that heroes, no matter how mighty, are still human. They laugh, they cry, they stumble, and sometimes they fall. But their courage, real courage, lies in continuing anyway. In Marvin's case, it lay in facing every opponent with a ferocity few could match, and in facing life with a quiet dignity that few witnessed. Perhaps the most enduring question is this: how do we honor someone like Marvin Hagler? Is it enough to remember the titles, the fights, the records, or do we look deeper, into the silences between the punches, the moments of struggle that defined him just as much as the victories? Marvin Hagler's life was brilliant, yes, but it was also painfully human, layered with triumph and tragedy alike. And in that duality lies a story that transcends boxing, a story that reminds us that even the strongest among us carry burdens, and that sometimes, the most heartbreaking tales are the ones that teach us the most about courage, resilience, and the fragile beauty of life itself. The lights dim, the crowd fades, but the memory of Marvelous Marvin lingers, a man who was unstoppable in the ring and unforgettable in the heart. What will we remember most, the legend or the man behind it? And in remembering, can we see not just the glory, but the tragedy that made him profoundly human?